Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflocky's Emos here today with a new deck profile. This is my legendary Exodia Incarnate control deck. This is a fun version of Exodia to play because it focuses more on using the effects of legendary Exodia Incarnate as opposed to just quick drawing Exodia as fast as you can. So, utilizes this monster that can get incredibly high attack and is just unaffected by card effects while also having the option to pivot into an Exodia win condition, and just makes it a very fun deck to bust out and play. Very much enjoy it. With that said, let's get into the cards. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of the legendary Exodia Incarnate. This is a really cool card for Exodia that is just a sweet monster. You have to special summon it from your hand by tributing a Forbidden One monster, so that's any of the Exodia pieces, of course, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 1,000 attack for each Forbidden One card in the graveyard, so every piece of Exodia that's in your grave gives this card 1,000 attack. That means theoretically this card can have up to 5,000 attack, which is pretty nice. And of course, this card is unaffected by other card effects. Now, that is an incredible effect to have on any monster. Being unaffected by card effects means that, your opponent either got a kaiju over it or tribute it by battle. So that can make Exodia Incarnate pretty painful to deal with here. And of course, once per turn, during your end phase, you add a Forbidden One monster from your graveyard to your hand. So that gets your Exodia pieces back in your hand, which is nice if you want to pivot onto the Exodia win con. But not as nice in this deck because we really want to keep them in the grave for his attack. But it's a fine balance because we want a couple to use off of our Obliterate. So, uh, you know, it keeps the loop going, essentially. And of course, if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can reveal any number of Forbidden One monsters in your hand and then draw up to that many cards. So that's pretty cool. If you have a lot of Exodia pieces in hand, then this card's going to have low attack, and that means it could be destroyed by battle. But if it gets destroyed by battle, you can reveal 2, 3, 4 Exodia pieces and draw that many cards, which may deep draw you the rest of Exodia. And that just makes it a cool option to have. So very much like this card. Definitely what I centered this deck around because I wanted to play it. Next up, for the monsters, we are playing 1 copy of all the Exodia pieces here. We have Exodia the Forbidden One, the main head, which just is the card that has the text that if you contain this and the other 4 pieces of Exodia in your hand, you win the game. So it's pretty nice. And of course, to go with that, we got the arms and the legs all here. We want to play one of each of these. They are limited, even if they weren't. I think we'd still only want to play as one because these are bricks. We don't want to see these cards in our hand too much, except for at least one, of course, to get Legendary Exodia Incarnate on the field. But, we'll talk about them more in a second. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Witch of the Black Forest. Witch of the Black Forest is pretty cool. Legendary Exodia Incarnate is a card we want to get, but it's not too easily searchable. But it does have 1,500 or less defense, so Witch of the Black Forest is nice. Because if this card's sent from the field to the graveyard, we can add a monster with 1,500 or less defense from our deck to our hand, as long as we can't activate that card effect this turn. So that's pretty nice. That grabs us Exodia pieces. That grabs us Exodia Incarnate. Grabs us mostly anything that's in this deck. So just a nice thing to have. And, we can set this, get it destroyed, whatever we're trying to do to move things along. Next up, I'm playing 1 copy of Sangan. Sangan is just a lighter version of Witch of the Black Forest. It can't search Legendary Exodia Incarnate because of the question mark name, but it can search an Exodia piece, and that makes it pretty good. It also is a dark monster, which is pretty important for this deck because we are going to be playing an Allure of Darkness engine to help move through the deck, and that just helps it out a bunch. Not a dark monster, but I am playing 1 copy of Mathematician. This is a card I like in here. It is a spellcaster, which is nice. Mostly a lot of these monsters are spellcasters, Witch of the Black Forest, the Exodia cards are all spellcasters. So that comes in handy with if we want to play Rivalry of the Warlords. And of course, when this card's normal summon, we send a level 4 or lower monster from our deck to the graveyard. So that can send us any Exodia piece to the graveyard just to make it accessible by Legendary Exodia Incarnate or boost its attack. And additionally, this card has a pretty nice effect that when this card's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can draw a card. So that's pretty nice. Gives us a card draw, mills us an Exodia piece. Definitely cool to have a copy of it. And last for the monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Battle Fader. Love to show off this secret rare playset of Battle Fader. Pretty cool card. It's a dark monster that just says when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. So, of course, if we're in an Exodia deck and we have Exodia pieces in our hand trying to buy a turn, We can use Battle Fader to blank a battle phase, which is pretty cool. And additionally, what's great about Battle Fader is it is searchable off of Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest, and additionally a Dark Monster, which is going to be great for our Allure of Darkness. Just makes it a nice card to have in the deck. And that is it for the monsters. Next, going into our spell cards, I am playing 2 copies of Dark Factory of Mass Production. This is a spell card that says target up to 2 monsters in your graveyard and add those targets to your hand. This is a cool card to have because we can use it to kind of burst win the game. If we have a lot of Exodia pieces and maybe we have 2 of the normal ones left in the grave, we can just add those to our hand. So having this card in the deck gives us the option to map out ways to get to our Exodia win con if Exodia Incarnate hasn't already beat them down, and just a cool card to have. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness is a pretty interesting card. You know, we draw 2 cards, and then we banish a dark monster from our hand, and if we don't, we send all our cards from our hand to the graveyard. So we're running a lot of dark monsters in here, and since we have the ability to win with Exodia Incarnate and not necessarily rely on Exodia, we can banish an Exodia piece if we want, especially because we do have ways to get them back, and it just gets us more cards out of our deck. Also, not being once per turn is pretty nice. Additionally, I'm playing 1 copy of Burial from a Different Dimension. This card just targets up to 3 banished monsters and returns them to the graveyard. So if we banish an Exodia piece from the grave and we want to get it back, we can, do so with Burial from a Different Dimension. Put any of that stuff that we banish off of Allure of Darkness back in the grave. Just a nice card to have a one of. Next, I'm playing 3 Pot of Extravagance. Yes, we can't play Extravagance and Allure on the same turn, but that's not a big deal. We want as much draw power as we can over the course of multiple turns, because this isn't a, draw your whole deck turn 1 version of Exodia. So Pot of Extravagance just turns our extra deck into card advantage. We're going to banish 6 of those extra deck cards face down and draw a card for each of the 3 that we did. So that's going to be banish 6 to draw 2, and that is pretty sweet. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Pot of Duality. Unless we're summoning Exodia Incarnate on a specific turn, we're not going to be special summoning during our turn. So we can easily give up our special summon to dig a little deeper in the deck, get us one of our continuous traps that'll help lock down our opponent and win the game, or just something we're looking for, maybe a last Exodia piece. So just a good option to have as a 2 of in this deck. And that is it for the spells. Next up, going into our trap cards, I am playing 3 copies of Obliterate. Now this is a continuous trap for the Exodia cards. That just says you can target a monster on the field, send a Forbidden One monster or Exodia card from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, return that target to the hand. If this card in the face-up spell and trap card zone is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Forbidden One monster or Exodia card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So that's pretty nice. This is going to get Exodia pieces out of our deck and in the grave so that they boost Incarnate's attack, or are accessible to be brought back from the graveyard, either via mass production or Incarnate to help win the game. So it just gets those Exodia pieces out and returns a monster to the hand that can be very disruptive to an opponent, especially utilized with some of our next cards. So just a really good card to have. We want to play 3 because we want to see it, and it's not easily searchable. Next up, we are playing 3 copies of Summon Limit. I know, Summon Limit, very powerful card, and it is very powerful here. Summon Limit slows the game down a bit so that Exodia Incarnate becomes quite a pain to deal with. Neither player can summon more than 2 times, which is never something we're going to be doing, and can be very disruptive of our opponent. This card combos so well with Obliterate because when your opponent summons 2 monsters, you can flip Summon Limit. Now they can't summon any more monsters. You can Obliterate, get one of them off the field, leaving only one of them on the field for Exodia Incarnate to clear. Or because we can use Obliterate during our turn and our opponent's turn, during our turn we can just send that card back and give Exodia Incarnate a straight shot at our opponent's life points. So that combo is just too good to pass up, and we are going to utilize it to the best we can. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Rivalry of the Warlords. This card says that each player can only control 1 type of monster. Now, pretty much everything in this deck is a spellcaster, except for Sangan and Battle Fader. Sangan we can easily, or we're just going to set it anyway, so we don't even care that we're not going to control it. And Battle Fader, you know, if Battle Fader is being used and on the field, it's going to be the only monster on the field, and we can get rid of it with our own Obliterate. So it doesn't restrict us too much. And just certain decks, you know, have multiple types of monsters or are building into multiple types of monsters, and they're not going to like to see this card. So it's a good card to have. Sometimes I consider swapping this out for Dimensional Barrier just for different matchups, just to kind of hose and blank turns, which is very nice. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Waboku. Waboku is just a nice little regular trap card that says make all battle damage inflicted by your opponent's monsters 0. So that means you're not going to take any battle damage this turn if you're stalling for Exodia. Also, it means that your monsters can't even be destroyed by battle since your opponent's monsters are doing 0 damage. So if you have a really low Exodia Incarnate that you're trying to just keep on the field one more turn to add one last Exodia piece, it's a very nice card to have, and we'll definitely be making use of that. And last for our trap cards, I am playing 3 copies of Reckless Greed. Reckless Greed is a pretty cool card. Draw 2 cards and skip our next 2 draw phases. What's nice about Reckless Greed is if we play multiple Reckless Greeds, we're still only skipping our next 2 draw phases. So 2 Reckless Greeds is going to draw us 4 cards, and we're only going to skip 2 draw phases, which is not that bad. And, you know, so if we can get the Dream all 3, that's very nice, especially if we Reckless Greed into Reckless Greed. We're going to like that. But what's also nice about Reckless Greed is that we can Reckless Greed in our draw phase to draw a card, then in our standby phase, pay Reckless Greed, and if one of the cards we draw into is Pot of Extravagance, we can still activate Pot of Extravagance. And that's just a lot of card advantage generated in one turn, and I really enjoy that play a lot. So Reckless Greed is just a nice card to have. And that's it for the main deck. So that is it for my Exodia Incarnate controlled deck profile. As far as the extra deck goes, we're just cramming it with 15 cards. We're never really going into it. Probably put my Waking the Dragon cards in there in case I want to side Waking the Dragon. So you know that in mind, it's pretty much pretty cool that you know we can use Exodia cards, summon this really big attack monster, and I really like the concept of like Exodia actually attacking and scrapping with our opponent. That makes it pretty cool. So yeah, very much enjoy playing this deck. Have you ever done anything with Legendary Exodia Incarnate or you know this kind of Exodia playstyle? Love to know in the comments below. Very fun. Thanks for checking out the video, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.